Well, hi, Shelby.
Well, hi, Jenna.
Welcome back to our episode on Iron Flame. Make sure you check out part 1.1. We already have one half of part 1 out, so if you haven't already listened to that, recommend checking that out first. We're still covering just part 1 of Iron Flame, the content in there, but there will be spoilers for the entire book of Iron Flame in this episode.
Yes. So we will try to keep to the first half, but because we both read like the entire book twice, there is definitely going to be information from the second half. So read the whole book, come back. We're going to give a refresh on who the people are, where we're at, what's going on. And then in our second episode, we'll get even more into depth into what happens at the end of the book.
Yes. So with that, let's take it away with part 2.
Part 2?
Speaking of Dane.
Oh, gosh.
So, and Dane's signet is mostly what I'm talking about here.
Yes.
I didn't really notice it quite as much until the second read, that when Varys brings Dane in the second time when he has Violet, when he's like actually torturing her, not when it's like part of the class and he wants, or maybe it is during the class, whatever, it doesn't matter. One of the times when he brings Dane in and he says, we're running out of civilians for Nolan to mend. Like when he's talking about how Dane needs to practice extending his abilities.
Yep.
What is Dane doing to these people that Nolan is having to heal them from? That just, I don't know why I really didn't catch that till the first time. I was like, what is he doing to them?
I didn't catch that
the first time. And why does he need to
all?
extend his abilities beyond that?
Yep.
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on what you think that means?
Yeah. I wonder, because we know that Xaden has 2 signets. But do we think that everybody could have 2 signets? Because I thought originally before Iron Flame, I thought that Violet was going to have 2 because she's bonded to 2 dragons. But since we know that Xaden has more than 1, do you think Dane has something else he could do too?
Well, Xaden has more than 1 because Ciel was bonded to his grandfather. It was direct familiar line.
And that's why he has 2?
That's why he has 2.
I didn't catch on to that point, really.
Yeah, so it's
that makes so much more sense.
I could probably find the part. I don't know if I wrote it down in my quick notes, but
you're good.
Yeah, it's one of the chapter headings. They talk about, they're like, this is why you're not supposed to bond somebody in your direct familial line because
I knew you
go more crazy or get multiple, right? Because we also have someone in, I want to say in her squad, but maybe it's not in her squad, who said she bonded the same dragon as her great aunt, but since it's not in the same familial line, she's like, oh, I just have a little bit stronger of a signet instead.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it just,
so that's where the 2 is supposed to come from.
Oh,
from Xaden.
Okay. Yeah. So if, like, going back to Dane then, if he just has the 1.
Yeah. So I don't think he has 2, but I just wonder how he's digging into people's minds, or if extending his abilities is like, I don't know, planting things in there instead.
Changing memories.
Right. Well, Imogen erases memories. We know that. That's kind of close, I guess.
Yeah.
And Dane is supposed to read minds. I don't know. So I just wonder if it's, something on the opposite, something more influential into somebody's mind instead that he's trying to push himself to do.
Well, it's crazy too because Dane at no point is seen as like exhausted or tired because Nolan he can't even see people. Like he sees Violet at one point and he was like, I'm so glad you're doing better because I'm not doing so hot. He's like, I'm glad I haven't had to mend you because I haven't been able to mend. And we find out that's in second half, isn't it?
It is, but there are a lot of clues, I think, in the first half. And because it's in the first half that Nolan says it's tough work mending a soul.
Yes, it's tough work mending a soul. Do you think it can be done?
No, I don't think through mending. I think there might be other ways to fix it. I'm not sold that there are other ways to fix it, but there might be, but I don't think it's through bending. I think it's going to be through something else.
Through something else. That is very interesting.
What about you? Do you think you can bend a soul? So meaning like Brennan or Nolan or something like that who can do bending.
Or let's talk about Violet a little bit. Because I think that one of her second signet, I think it could be like magic mending. And so she can like change the way that magic works. And so like we were kind of talking about it in Fourth Wing, where like taking magic from something, and like that's how the Venin like turn Venin.
Taking it from the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we know that the riders will take magic from from
through
Venin.
their bonds of their dragons.
Yes, thank you. And so I wonder, like, if it's being taken from different places, like clearly it can have different sources or whatever. And so I'm wondering, like, if it can be mended and changed, and what if, I don't know if she could not change the source of where it comes from, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't thought about it down that train. That could be really interesting for sure. I don't know what that I had thought about down that train, but from just they talk about signets as coming up as kind of out of critical need too.
Yes.
So Violet does have a need to figure out how, like, not even just to defeat Venin, but to maybe convert people back.
Right.
So I could see that thought train for sure. I think the only like thing I'm trying to figure out in my brain is because at the very, very end, and maybe we can talk about it more in the second part, but the very end, Xaden, and maybe when he's talking about Jack.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so Jack is still alive. Never mind.
Yes.
But when he's talking with him and he's like, yeah, I'm like already craving pulling it more. So it made it seem less like maybe it's not that he has to pull from the ground, but like once you're, it's like taking some crack cocaine or something. I don't know, it's addicting, and that once you do it, you want to do it more because you feel powerful and it feels good.
And so maybe she can change the way that the magic feels, or like change the way that the magic is like working on him or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Maybe she can change magic or do something.
Yeah. When do you think there was an example of her doing that in this book? Because Rebecca Yarros said that Violet explicitly uses her second signet in this book.
Yes. And
in the second part? Is that why you're
I think it might be in the second part, but I'm also trying to think of like the exact, because I think it also might lead into one that you might have for one of her questions of a signet. But I think that that's why she might be able to like either amplify magic or like, I'm trying to get back to like our first conversation when we first talked about it, when we started, like right after we read the book, and we were talking about like her signets and whatnot. And we had talked about like her doing something with people's signets. And I think that that could maybe have something to do with like her changing it, and not the fact that like it's like amplifying it, or like, was it Sawyer that can like cut off the signets?
Yeah, he can like counteract them, I think.
It, yes.
Yeah.
And so I think she can do kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think that hits on like a couple different ones that I had thought about, because so maybe stepping back a little bit to even just how you were talking about it originally, saying, you think she can change magic or heal maybe magic or whatever. I did note that I felt like she came off as more sensitive to wards and runes and like that, like magic in general. She seemed to come off, and maybe it's just because we were in her head, so we knew what she was thinking, and maybe everybody else is feeling the same way. But she did seem extra sensitive to that. Like even when she was going to use the Tirish dagger to unlock the door coming out of like I had noted that whole scene, and I know that there was a rune on it. Yeah. And that there was, or
when Xaden puts it in her pack and she was like, oh, I felt it.
Yeah. And so other people do talk about being able to feel being in the wards, but for some reason, the way she talks about it,
it's very different.
It does feel different. And so that's why I'm like, maybe that's a slightly different spin than what you were saying. But I did notice that her interaction with magic felt different.
It did, yeah.
And maybe because, we talked about in Fourth Wing some theories that maybe she's, part Venin, or her mom turned Venin while she was pregnant with her, or that there was like something weird with Venin,
right.
then. And so maybe that feeds into why she feels magic differently. And maybe it's not a signet. Maybe that's just how she feels it, but it could be it. But I did also, so then to the second part of what you said, when we talked about the first time, that I had said maybe her second signet is being a boost or some type of amplification for others, because her friends and the people around her seem to do more when they're with her. And that comes up with Rhiannon pulling the dagger through the wall. It comes up with Mira being able to do the ward when she normally can't. It comes up one of the times with Xaden, I think, really pushing his shadows too. So there are a few times that comes up, and maybe
two
pieces.
In the shower scene? In the shower scene, like when
does she boost his power then?
Yeah, she says that his shadows look darker than they ever had. Or something along those lines.
Nice.
And I was like,
losing control.
Nice.
Yep. Oh my God, but on that note, let's talk about my favorite scene of Iron Flame.
Is it the shower scene?
No.
Which one is it?
It's when she's going to visit him and she's just landed there, and like mind to mind, Xaden's being like, if you want to sleep in my room tonight, if you want to talk, you need to kiss me right now. Tell me to kiss you right now. And then of course she's like, okay, kiss me. And then they're like all making out, and then Mira's like, okay, knock it off, y'all. That's enough. I get it. That is my favorite scene of this book.
Oh my, is it really? That's your favorite? Oh my God, that cracks me up.
It's so cute.
That is so precious. I honestly think the shower scene might be my favorite. I mean, it's at least my favorite in the first half.
Yeah.
Not because of the sex, because that was delicious, but it was more because she was like, I'm not going to give you those words because I'm not ready to give you those 3 words. But you know how I'm feeling. You know that I want this. I know you feel it. I know you want this. But she still held her ground. And then she still kind of got what she want. And they, like, I don't know. It was kind of like a win-win for everybody. So I just loved it.
Yeah.
I loved that scene. And then it was super hot. So
yeah, I mean that obviously. And that scene was just funny going into it too, when Violet is like, Taryn took over so much. She's like, I feel so out of control.
Yes.
She's like, I don't even know what to do with this. And he's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah,
well,
let's put you in the shower.
Whatever you need there.
I know. Oh my gosh. It is crazy going back to the scene before that though, because when she's in the school and Devera is telling her about how, like, hey, people got really hurt, and she scratches her neck. And do you think that was her telling?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
When I read it the second time, I didn't know if I did.
Oh, you think that Violet was just reading into it?
Yeah.
But didn't Devera like make eye contact with Violet while she was scratching her neck like that?
No, she made eye contact with her before, when she was like, oh, this is where it was. And then she looked back at the classroom, and it was like a couple of sentences later that she like scratched her neck. And so I didn't know if I felt it as much. And then I feel like Violet freaked out, and so Taryn freaked out, and Taryn really freaked out.
Yeah, Taryn really freaked out, yeah.
So
yeah, because I kind of feel like Taryn would have known if it was really actually that bad.
Right, exactly.
He's like, yeah, there was a moment where there's a question earlier, but I don't know.
And Taryn does say a lot how, like, Violet can't control her emotions.
Yeah, he does.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Well, okay, but on the note of control for Violet, that leads me to another, maybe like sounds less interesting, but potential signet for her second signet.
Oh, yes.
And that's for her to basically maybe have like a better mental shield than others.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of like Bella from Twilight.
Oh my gosh, I love
After
that.
she, turns into a vampire and she like,
is able to shield things out.
Well, yeah. And I mean, she was able to shield what's his face, Edward, the whole time, anyways, right? But
it's like subconsciously.
I know. So maybe something like that, because there's a couple scenes that come up of her talking about, like the extreme need, first of all, for that, right?
Yes.
That from the mind magic of the flyers later, but also just earlier of blocking out Dane or blocking out anyone else. And even Varish makes a comment about how her shield is weirdly good. And she was able to block out Taryn faster than people were expecting in the first book.
Yes.
Block out his emotions, remember? Because Xaden's all surprised that she's like able to do it so quickly.
Yeah.
And
he's like, oh, well, that was easy.
Yeah. And the only other reason why I think maybe that could be it is because Xaden makes a comment early on too of how he's like, when you can fully block me off, like then that means that I'm dead, or like that means that's a problem or something. And there is a point somewhere where she is able to like fully block him out.
Yeah.
So it just makes me wonder if maybe that's skill like is like a bigger skill. I don't think, I'm not sold that that's really it, but it's an option that I considered.
Absolutely. I mean, it is interesting. I definitely had that in there.
Yeah.
I definitely had shielding in there.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I also wonder, like, if she can't mend magic or shield, I wonder if she's a type of intrinsic.
Yeah, I mean, that just made me, because of how big of a deal it was that Xaden was, that's part of why I wonder if her second signet is something mental versus physical. But I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely wondered that too. Mm-hmm. What do you think about Naolin or Nowlin? I don't know how I say it both ways, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think he's still alive? Or
so funny you should say that. I did write down a kind of a question on that because I think I maybe say Nowlin. I don't know that that's right, but
I just get confused with Nolan. Yeah. And so in my head I'm like, Nowlin.
Yeah. Nowlin. Say it with like a southern accent. Nowlin. No, so Nowlin is Taryn's previous rider. He was a siphon, which is part of why I want to bring that into conversation here. And so but that's why I was confused, because he was noted as a siphon by Brennan, I guess. But I thought that he also was the one who saved Brennan. Oh, probably because he had to like get power into Brennan so that he could save himself, right? Because he could mend himself.
Right. Or do you think he took power from the ground?
Right. So that was going to say is what Brennan says is, Nowlin didn't fail, but it cost him everything, was like the specific statement.
That was, yep.
And there is another part when he says something about Nowlin dying, but it's that statement that read looser to me around that, if that maybe he did turn Venin saving Brennan and that he's off with the Venin now doing whatever. I don't know.
Right.
I could swing either way on that one right now.
And one of the questions that I have is, because he was supposed to be clearly extremely powerful, could he be the sage?
You think in the last 6 years he's crawled the ranks that much? Because they seem to really have a lot of ranks.
They do.
In the Venin too. I thought they have said they've grown in numbers a lot too.
Right. So. And so part of me wonders if he's like, well, this is how
it's going to be a known enemy.
Yes.
That would be wild, honestly.
Right?
That would be super wild.
And the only reason I say that is because he had to have been so powerful with his signet, and he already knows how to wield power or whatever. And so it's like he knows how the ranks work at Basquiat. And so he's like, let's do it this way. Like, if you follow me, you're going to be like, this is what we're going to do. So Yeah. I had just a question in general around my head, though, of thinking about how a siphon could turn Venin anyways. Oh, yeah? Just because the whole point is that their signet is that they can draw power from other places, right? Yeah. Or is it just other people then, I guess? But, like, it's not just that, right? Because, like, there's a back and forth with the stone. Right. That when they're imbuing it in power. So that's the only reason why I have that caveat in my mind where I'm like, but can a siphon even be Venin if the whole point is that they already can siphon from power from other places? That is very interesting.
It's just a food for thought.
Yeah,
I don't know that I have an
definitely a good
answer
thing
on
to keep
that.
thinking about. Well, especially going into the second part, I think that's a really good question to have.
Yes.
Very interesting. Before we move into talking to Venin, will you
Refill
help me?
wine?
Yeah.
Dude, I was literally...
Oh, hell yeah. I'm literally just like loving being in this world again so much. I'm like, I loved Fourth Wing. I loved reading this the first time. I'm loving it even better the second time. I like literally love this world so much.
Yeah. Well, and I like that the world expands in this book too.
I do too. I definitely do. Yeah. Speaking of world expanding, want to talk about some Venin?
Yeah. Let's talk more about Venin. Until the second time I read it, like until my reread, I don't think I realized how prevalent the Venin are already at Basgiath, even in the first part.
Yes.
Because do you think that Varish was Venin?
Yeah.
Or is that something you want to talk about in the second part?
Nope. This is actually the perfect time to talk about it, I think. But it kind of brings in the dragons.
That's exactly why I was going to say that. Because there's his whole interaction with Solus. And right at the end of the first half, like right before Varish, I think it's maybe right before Varish dies, or maybe when he's questioning Violet. And this is on page 270. And it was maybe one of the times he was questioning Violet, whatever.
Yeah.
And Varish goes, they're talking about controlling your or being able to shield the emotions of your dragon. And Varish says, maybe you struggle, but some of us don't bow to the whims of our dragon. In fact, we influence them. And so then it was just interesting. And so, Kaori, the other professor that was kind of backing up Violet, indicates that maybe that meant he asked Solus to burn down those students on day one.
Yeah.
But knowing what happens in part 2 with Bade, it did make me kind of wonder what their relationship was between him and his dragon, because his dragon does seem like way crazier than any of the other ones. And
very unstable.
Yeah.
Well, there's also something else about the dragons that they kind of also say about the wyvern. And maybe it's unhinged, but the way that they talk about Solus, like they talk about him as unstable, he's got one eye, and he has this rank ass breath.
But they say that about Kath too.
About Dane's dragon?
Yeah.
That's what I was literally just gonna say. Like,
yeah.
Does that, like, what do we think that could be? Like, say if that's the case and like they're either dealing with Venin or they are Venin or something like that, what the fuck does that mean for Dane?
Yeah. I thought that I read it wrong the first time, which is why I say that Kath with such confidence this time.
Yes.
Because I was so confused when I went back and read that it was Kath that she notes as having super bad breath, because because
there was a word and I can't remember.
I know. But and maybe it's then, I don't remember if it's Bade later or if it is maybe the wyvern or both. But there is another comment about the like super bad breath.
Yes. And the rotting teeth.
Yeah, the rotting teeth maybe was it. And yeah, so I did know that. I was like, I don't know that Dane was showing any other signs besides the weird comment about
That's what I mean.
People healing.
Like maybe Dane has been like, I don't know. Maybe Dane's like almost burning himself out with these civilians, and Nolan has to fix him. Or
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep in. But also, okay, back when we're talking about the dragons, we're talking about Nowlin. If he's Venin, we don't get any indication that Taryn has rotten teeth or stinky breath or anything.
Well, we also don't have any real information about what the bond with the dragon, like what happens after they turn Venin, because even, and we can talk about it more in the second half, but Skell doesn't, like at the very end of the book, she's basically just not really communicating with Xaden.
Yeah.
And so that's all we know about that. And Taryn has basically said, don't ask me about my previous rider, is really all he said about Nolan too.
Because obviously Scale knows. So like obviously Taryn knows.
Right. But Taryn has also said humans aren't the only ones that keep secrets.
Yes,
and like
he
literally in
has.
as many words. So it's very clear that the Empyrean have war stuff going on even beyond Andarna that we don't really know about yet. And I think that's one of them is maybe what's, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like your bond in a sense with that dragon breaks when you turn Venin. And so that would be, I don't know, I guess why like the one dying wouldn't do anything to the other.
Well, I kind
why
of
he could
wonder
rebond.
too if maybe like as we saw with Liam and was it Darb that was his or who was
His dragon, I don't remember.
So no, Slate was the other one that died. Liam and his dragon. When his dragon died, the bond was cut so severely that Liam died too. But that's kind of why I wonder if there's like levels to Venin, where like the more you take, the more you get like further in, and the more you want to take. It's like an addict almost. And so I wondered like if we're at the point like Jack Barlow and he's like, oh, like it looks like he's high on drugs. Like maybe he still has the bond, but it's muted. Or like maybe it's just not as like strong. I don't know.
I still don't really understand how Jack being saved made him Venin. I still don't really get that.
I don't really get it either. Because we talk about how Nolan, the healer, he's a healer, right? He's not a mender? Or is
He might be a mender.
There's a difference, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a difference.
So he's been healing Violet for years and years and years. But I don't even remember what Jack's power is.
I don't remember either.
Quick, actually.
Yeah.
Let me see if I
But
have
so
that
when he
written
first goes
down.
down, it's because Violet basically knocks a mountain on him.
Right.
So his body and his dragon are sort of crushed. His dragon clearly survives. That's fine.
Yeah.
And he comes back with it. I kind of felt like it was just strength or something lame like that.
Yeah, I think it was something like that too. Yeah, it's not in here. I don't know. But
just
something to think
some
about.
things to think about.
Yeah. How the hell did Jack Barlow come back? Unless he wasn't actually dead.
Well, he must not have been dead. Like they must have gotten his body and been trying to heal him. But
Unless
the Venin found him and saved him.
unless he came back of Venin and Nolan is trying to heal the Venin out of him.
Well, and that's what I think happened, but I just still don't get, because I don't think that Jack was a mender of any sort. So I don't get how he
Mended himself.
saved himself and like became Venin in the process, you know? Or I don't understand how somebody saved him and made him. That's why I'm like, I think that that's a whole piece we haven't really gotten into of like, how did he even
Unless Nowlin,
get like that?
Nowlin found him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, can a Venin make someone else Venin? You know, maybe he tells him what to do. I don't know.
I feel like
just
you know like nothing of them.
interesting. And it was interesting. I don't know. So, because clearly Varys is like very aware of what Nolan's trying to do with Jack and healing him. He goes, and when Nolan is kind of trying to be like sneaky and get out of the room with Varys so that Violet can have a moment. And he says, oh, I need, our, I don't want to say client. What's the word that he has? Patient, whatever, is having issues. And Varys goes, oh, do you think the sessions are failing? So it makes it clear that it's Varys' agenda in some way of guiding these sessions, because he also notes Jack as being unpredictable.
Yes.
So I don't know if Varys is wanting to just control Jack as a Venin, but doesn't actually care that he is Venin, or if Varys cared that he was healed.
Right,
so those
or
are two
he
different
wants
things.
to keep him in a certain level of Venin.
Because
they have maybe different powers or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some interesting things.
It is. So kind of on the note of like Venin and people who know too much, do you think that Violet's dad was killed off because he knew too much?
Yes. 100%. 100%. Because
do you think he's actually dead?
Yes, I kind of do. Just because not everybody can still be alive, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be some hidden still people alive, and Brennan's still alive. I could see a now Lynn being evil but still alive arc. But like if her dad is also still alive, that
Then
starts to get a little lame, you know, that no one's actually dead. So,
Nobody actually dies.
maybe that's a lame reason to think that way, but that's the main reason I do. But the reason why I think he was for sure killed off is because Lilith, Mama Sorrengail, right, says your father made sure you'd know everything you needed or where to find it. You're all that's left of him. Like that whole statement. So I think he knew he was probably going to be killed off, and he tried to leave clues for her to figure it out. But also on that note then of her dad, I think Violet might have a different dad than her siblings. Do you?
I definitely question whether something like that was going on, because she is just very different. And the hair?
Well, she's very different. And the way that Lilith talks about her dad, she's, you know, it says like the love of my life was a scribe and whatever. But that she doesn't say your dad. She says the love of my life.
Oh, I did not catch that difference in wording.
And the fact that she says when she's talking about Violet's dad, she goes, you're all that's left of him. And she knows that Mira is still alive at this point too. So even if she doesn't know that Brennan is alive, she knows that Mira is alive, and she says, you're all that's left of him.
So do you think the scribe that raised Violet is different than...
I just kind of wonder if Violet doesn't... I wonder if maybe...
Do you think that's why Brennan didn't care to come back either? Is because... Like, even if he knew that the scribe dad was dead?
I don't think that Mira and Brennan know. I bet that Mama Sorrengail was the only one that knew. But I bet that the scribe dad, I bet that he knew and, like, loved Lilith anyways or something like that. You know what I mean? And, like, supported her anyways.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if somebody else knocked her up or something. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's mine. You know?
Oh my gosh.
But just that specific line of you're all that's left of him, since it was already something we had questioned of her being so different from everybody else. Right. It did make me wonder if either the scribe dad is only the only one parent for Violet.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Like if he's not Violet's dad, but he's the other kid's dad.
That is so interesting. I definitely have questions about Violet's upbringing and her, like, who sired her, I guess. Like, interesting.
Yeah.
People always talk about her hair. And the thing is, for me, yes, it is different. And in the first book, they said that it was like halfway down, that it's like her hair is silver, right?
Fades color, yeah.
Right. But if that was to happen, they said in the first book that it happened because her mom had a fever, or she had a fever when she was young or something.
Oh, did they? I don't remember that in Fourth Wing, yeah.
And I just, like, I don't know why I remember that fact, but I remember that from Fourth Wing. And to me, I'm like, I look in the mirror and I look how much my hair has grown in the past 2 years. There's no way that, like, halfway down, my hair was like 3 years old. Like, there's no way that, like, 3 years ago is when that all started to happen.
Well, and they talk about, in the beginning of Fourth Wing, they definitely talk about it doesn't matter how short Violet cuts her hair, it always ends up being faded colors from the halfway point.
Oh, see, that was something that I was forgetting for sure.
They talk about that. It's like it doesn't matter how long she keeps it, that just always seems to happen. She always seems to lose the color.
Okay,
so it's definitely like a genetic or body thing, not like a one-time thing growing out.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because I was like, when I was reading this and thinking about like, like, what did her upbringing and stuff look like? Now that makes more sense. So it's always at some point, maybe then if half her hair is, you know, a different color and losing color, like that happens with Venin, like they lose their color and they basically, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the hair at some point is going to be significant.
Yeah, I think so too. It's
maybe in the next book.
Very significant for Xaden.
Yeah. Let your hair down anytime. You want to win an argument.
If you want to win an argument, just let your hair down. And then she does that. He goes, are you trying to kill me? And she goes, yes. Get it, girl.
Yeah, that was so cute.
That was so cute.
Oh, man.
So family lineage. So we've briefly mentioned Bodhi.
Mm-hmm.
And he is known as Xaden's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many times when Violet is like, he's the same exact height as Xaden. He crept up and I didn't know it wasn't Xaden, or
They look so similar.
Similar. I think they could be related.
You think they could be like half brothers instead?
Yeah.
Do you think with his mom that was no longer... No, because Bodhi's only like a year younger, right?
Yeah. So maybe same dad?
Maybe.
Yeah. But I think that there has to be something like, they have to be like closer than just cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only thing we really know about Xaden's parents is like Xaden's dad was in the infantry and he wanted Xaden to go into the infantry as well.
Because he went into infantry so that he could be king.
Yes.
Because riders couldn't be kings.
Yes.
Yes.
And so he also wanted Xaden to go into the infantry.
Yeah. Before the rebellion, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, before all the rebellion and everything. But we don't actually know that much about his mom.
Yeah, we just know that... Actually, maybe it comes up in the second half. Does it come up in the second half?
I don't remember.
Oh, if you don't remember, if you didn't go through it now, yeah, we do talk about mom and her leaving when he was 5. Like she only had to stick around for 5 years, that whole thing. We can talk about it more in the second half then, because I think that's where they have a deep conversation about it. Mm-hmm. But we only know a little bit.
We only know a little bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's, yeah.
What else I got?
Lots of questions about lineage and whatnot.
Well, I've got just a couple, I don't know, let's say foreshadowing that I see.
Oh, I like
things that I was like, this is sketch. Moments like that. So we were talking about dragons earlier.
Yeah.
And, Coda and Terran being the only black dragons for now.
Yes.
But they do talk about the valley above the Rierson house being the original hatching grounds of their bloodline. And we know there's babies there again. Mm-hmm. So I do kind of wonder, the fact that they mentioned that specifically, that there's more babies, makes me feel like those babies are going to be important.
I think so too. Yeah, because Terran says in the very beginning that like more black babies have been born. Mm-hmm. And there have been more that are hatching, less that are bonding. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that was really significant because Violet even says at some point, like, well, why would they do that? Like, now is when we need them more than ever. Mm-hmm. And that is when Terran says, well, dragons are keeping secrets too. Mm-hmm. And so part of me feels like this world... We might be in the humans' point of view right now, but like it's the dragon's world.
I know. It's funny. I have wondered, and this is like a way out there theory, but I have wondered if like the dragons are maybe more on the morally gray, morally black side than we think. And I don't know. I feel like there's, because there was some weird stuff with the wards going up of like, well, why do the wards have to block the flyer's magic? Right. Like I get blocking the Venin's fine, but like why is it only dragon magic that gets to be used there? Like that stuck out to me as like, that's interesting. And the fact that not all of the Empyrean is on board with sharing information, and that the series is called the Empyrean, it's the Empyrean series. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and they've had all these meetings, behind closed doors of decisions about things. They, there's all the weird stuff with Indarna bonding now. Why now? Right. We won't even get into that yet. I think we'll talk about that later. But
what we can talk about with Indarna. So she's basically sleeping this entire time until she comes out of her nap, and she's a bratty teenager, which was so funny. Where her new favorite thing is telling Terran what or what not to do. But what Violet notices when she first sees her is, one, she's huge. She is like over twice the size as she was before. But then she said she has like iridescent
purple.
Yes. And she says, oh, but then they look black. Oh, but then they're green and purple. And she's like, oh, they must be reflecting off of something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Oh my gosh, I did not catch that the first time.
Oh, I for sure did.
I caught it this time. You caught it the first time?
I caught it the first time, 100%.
You did?
The first time that she said that she looked kind of purplish and iridescent, she's like, oh, it must be the lighting. Literally the first time that came out, I was like, nope, she's not black.
Really?
I called that from
You
the
knew?
first one. Yeah.
I did. Well,
for sure. And then there's another, when she's like in the grass and she's like, oh, she looks green. Like she's a chameleon. That's like,
you knew right away.
I knew right away. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Whatever. You're okay. We talk about actually, we haven't talked about it for a while. You always guess right.
Oh, I don't know that I always guess right. I just always read into things way too far.
And I definitely do. I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I keep going.
Yeah. But I think I'm always looking for stuff like that too. So, yeah.
What did you think about Anne Donner in her teenage years?
That's so funny. It was so cute.
It was nice to have some like comedic relief.
Yeah.
While we were going through some of like the info dumping and like obviously like learning so much and going back and forth, and it was.
I think we get more of it in the second half.
I think so too.
I think we get more of Anne Donner in the second half.
Yeah, we definitely had a little bit, but then towards the second half of the first half of the book, she was just sleeping the entire time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we don't see her very much.
Yeah. So also on dragons though, I guess, besides, we did talk about the Empyrean being divided on whether or not to get involved and stuff, but Violet's dad researching feather tails.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to find a manuscript somewhere of his research on feather tails?
Oh gosh, I hope so. What I hope and kind of predict that's going to happen in the next book is because of something that happens at the very end of the book, I think Violet's going to go through her mom's things. And I think she's going to maybe find things that she kept secret.
Yeah, things that she didn't burn even though she was supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you even look at like the Book of Brennan, like that clearly was supposed to be burned and Mira gave it. And so I think there's just so much that has been secret that there has to be more.
I know. I'm very curious, or I'm curious if maybe her dad had some special relationship with some of the dragons, like that he was actually getting to learn about them. I don't know. I just think that that's going to be significant, especially because the whole like, oh, feather tails haven't been seen in hundreds of years.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Huh? Interesting. What I really liked about it was Violet's relationship with Jacinia, who is clearly like transcribing everything in this book.
Well, yeah, they say it at the very beginning, right?
In the very beginning, yeah.
Which also just like picturing Jacinia having to transcribe the sex scenes is
oh my god, hilarious. She's like, this is probably what happened.
Yeah, that was really funny to think about.
I loved that she was kind of the first one that Violet like confided in, and not for everything clearly, but she was like, if you know, like it'll get you killed, and she's like, okay, just tell me what you need me to know. I loved that
because she had already been backing her even from the year before. She's like, yeah, I didn't log your request. She's like, I know I was supposed to, but I didn't.
Which, how crazy that even last year when we didn't know that, like, we knew that the dad was kind of sketchy in some things that he was researching and whatnot, but like we didn't know it was going to be like executionable. And so knowing that even Jacinia then was like, yeah, I thought it was really weird. Yeah. But clearly there's something going on. I really liked that part in the book where they were like handing each other things, and Violet was finally able to like put her trust into somebody that she had known and like
confide a little bit. Yeah. Well, and on Jacinia, on that note, I'm curious what she was researching or transcribing when she comes to Violet to get help with something that's in the old, was it Lucerish? Is that what I'm supposed to pronounce it?
Yep.
About a king from 1,000 years ago before Navarre existed.
Yeah. Huh.
So it makes me wonder, one, what she was researching or transcribing, and then two, why.
Yeah, why? Because she had even wondered why Violet was researching, but she never asked.
Yeah.
Because she's got secrets too.
Yeah. And I thought it was notable that when Violet sees that it's somebody from like 1,000 years ago, and then she sees like, oh, it was transcribed 25 years ago, then she's like, ah, crap. Okay. Never mind. Not important.
But
Interesting, right? Because they're looking for stuff that's really, really old.
Right.
I don't know. There was just that
or
whole scene.
Like letters and like stuff that they're looking at that was within the last 25 years is all redacted. Like
right.
There's so much information that they are being withheld.
Right. Well, because there's even one of the chapter headings when there's like a clip from that.
Gosh.
I had lost my train of thought. That's where I was trying to go.
Yes.
That there's like 4 lines, they normally have the like, oh, like who wrote it? There's like 4 lines of like, this is who wrote it first, then retranscribed, then retranscribed here.
And then redacted.
Then redacted for educational purposes.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's
Or how Mira's letter is redacted.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what the heck was in that letter that like her sister is writing? Clearly her sister isn't going to be like, this is what happened on the front lines. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Even their personal letters and stuff is being monitored. I thought that was wild.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Well, so on a like timing perspective, we were talking about that a little bit of like timeline. Violet kind of ponders at one point about when Navarre closed their borders.
Yeah.
And she's like, was it as soon as we unified or closer to 400 AU? When I think they wiped the history from the books. And there's that question too. And so I'm hoping that maybe in book 3, we're going to get like a clearer picture of when that happened and why.
I hope
right?
so too.
Like, I think we're going to find some older accounts of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so too. I hope there are like, we have like the books and stuff that are in like Basgiath, but I hope that there are more that are going to be like in Erasia or maybe in another place that they go. That
maybe in Lilith's office. Who knows?
Exactly.
Maybe she was married to a scribe. Maybe she has some stuff that was hiding in there.
I hope so. Kind of back on that heading note. Mm-hmm. It makes me really scared that all of these say recovered correspondence.
I noted that too. So on the theories front, I think a lot of people have a theory that Xaden is going to die. And
because we don't get the opposite from Violet to Xaden.
Yeah. Well, so now, and I think some of it, maybe we need to talk more about that when we talk about part 2, but yes, the recovered correspondence, I think people have really questioned whether that means that he's dead now too, or that they're dead or whatever, or if it's just in the past and they're saying this is something we found, these letters they wrote. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I did also note that though, but when we get to the second part, I don't know. It'll maybe be more interesting. It's just since Violet has Andarna, I don't think that Xaden dying could cause, or I mean, maybe it could, but it probably wouldn't cause Violet to die. Mm-hmm. So
even if Taryn died,
right? Because she would still have Andarna. Mm-hmm. So I do think that door is open.
I agree. I don't know if it's necessarily open for Xaden.
No, I don't think so. I think if Violet
Taryn
died,
were to die.
Well, I don't know. I think we need to talk about that in part 2.
I think so too. I think that's a good way to talk about it in part 2 as well.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
What about the drug separating the riders from their bonds? We haven't even talked about that.
Oh my God, I cannot believe that we haven't talked about that. What the fuck?
Well, it's new this year.
New this year, yes.
So do you think that it was developed trying to figure out how to control Venin, to keep Venin from pulling power?
I didn't, but I like that theory.
Because Nolan was one who created it this year.
Right.
Nolan was the one who's working on Jack.
Right.
So it makes me feel like they were trying to use it as a way maybe to control so that maybe it also blocks Venin from pulling power. Like it just blocks any power pulling maybe.
Unless Varish is very heavily involved. And let's lean on the theory that we think Varish might be a Venin or something of the sort. And if he is very heavily involved with that process, what if he wants to control the riders?
Yeah, but I don't think that Nolan is Venin. And I don't think that Nolan would go that far.
But I think Nolan is weak enough that Varish can control him. because he comes off as a very, like, he's got a strong signet, but he comes off as a weak character. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like he's already been controlled for how long. And so I wonder if maybe he's just being controlled to make it. Kind of like,
so you think he was being controlled to be developing stuff for the Venin?
Yes. Or
that would be wild.
That would be wild. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the serum that disconnects them from the dragons. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. But I loved that during the interrogation, Violet was like, you know what? I think we've been here before. Let's not drink that.
Yes. Oh my God. I loved that she was smart enough to catch that the second time.
Me too. That
made me very happy.
Me too. And I loved that they just like pretended. And she's just so smart. And so when they were like, oh my gosh, we need to drink this, she's like, don't do it. And then she's talking to Taryn and Xaden's like, I'm coming. And she's like, no, because you're going to give me away.
Right.
And if you do this, then this is going to happen. And this is going to happen. And she just like thought it all out before acting. But even though that interrogation sucked, I loved that it brought the squad closer together.
It did. Yep. Bonding through trauma.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, and they really even started that way, right? They had to share a big personal secret. Mm-hmm. And I really liked the secret that she shared, that being that they're killing civilians on the borders, because it was like as close to what was going on as she could share. Mm-hmm. And it would really, I think, just gave everyone else a sense for how serious the stuff going on was and why she's been so reserved. Yeah, and like kind of what she saw, even though she wasn't giving away like everything that she saw. Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh, the entire time I was reading this, I was just thinking how suspenseful this book is. And like, I was on the edge of my seat like the entire time. Like the entire time it's just like, and Fourth Wing was this way too, where I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is such a stressful situation. And this is just like so much happening all at the same time. Like I couldn't imagine enduring that kind of stress the entire time you're there. Yeah. Yeah, what a life, man. I know. Because even I think Riddick says it at one point when she's like, okay, this is going to be dangerous, like now that I've told you. And he goes, wow, people are going to die. I was wondering when things were going to get exciting again. I was like, oh my God, Riddick. Like, of course you'd pop a joke right now. Ridiculous, like, right? I know. Oh my gosh. You know who we haven't talked about really at all? Who? Auric. Yeah. So Auric, what is his actual name? I don't remember. So it's Auric Greycastle. Is it when he goes by Auric Greycastle? Yes. But he's actually the prince. Yeah, Cam, but I don't remember his. It doesn't matter. Whatever. He's actually the prince. The prince. He's the king's third. King Taurus. Yeah. King Tartarus. King something. It starts with T. The king of Navarre, I guess, must be. Can tell I really pay attention to those details. But he's the third son. Yes. But it definitely stuck out to me as foreshadowing for the next book or sometime coming up, that Auric specifically says when he's like talking about his dad and Violet, because Violet's like, aren't you like scared of like what he's gonna do, or like what do you think he's gonna do? He's like, he can't do shit after the threshing. Dragons don't even answer to kings. And so that I think is gonna come back, because I think that now the king of Navarre is going to be trying to get involved. He's going to realize his son is there with a dragon, and it's going to be like, oh shit, I can't do anything to like get you back. Cause we already know that Auric has stolen the book, right? Yes. Or like what was it? That's what I'm looking for. Journal? Yes, journal. Journal from one of the original, from two of the original. Because was it from Lyra? There was two of them. There was two of them, right? There was Lyra, and I don't remember the other person's name. Yeah. But Riddick says it, and he was like, "Do I know more than you?" Yeah. And that's when he was like, "It was two accounts. Yes. They kept journals from the first of the 6 riders. Yes, and they were in that room, royal room in the basement of the archives that only a royal could get into. And so I think at that point we're supposed to think that the king probably suspects that his son is gone. He hasn't seen him, and someone's broken into the royal archive, right?
Yes.
But we didn't come back to that really at all.
Nope.
Even in the second half,
Nope.
I don't think that really came up.
Not that I remember.
So I think that in book 3, the king of Navarre is going to come back to be like trying to pull Auric back in, and Auric's going to be like, no, this is my squad now. This is where I belong.
Yep.
I'm on the right side. Are you going to join us or what? Like, I think it's going to be that attitude. And obviously, I think they're going to clash. I don't think he's going to come over.
Because I loved it that when, I think it might have been after Sloane, after Violet had helped Sloane, and I want to call him Cam. It's not Cam. They call him Auric the whole time. Yeah. And he goes something along the lines of like, yeah, so do you finally know like what? Or no, maybe it was when she told Rhiannon what like something, and he goes, and that's when he was like, oh yeah, I know. And she was like, you know? And he's like, why do you think I'm here? Yes, I know. And I'm like, yes, somebody else knows. Like, thank goodness.
Yeah, I'm really super curious to see how Auric comes into it.
Me too. And I loved because he becomes a really big part of the book, and I just love that part.
Yes.
I think that's so awesome.
Oof. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What else I got? I don't think if I've got anything more for the first half. Oh, a very, very small foreshadowing that I'm just curious about.
Yep.
Literally page 3, very beginning.
Yeah.
Xaden's talking about Eratia, and he's talking about how stone doesn't burn. I just wonder if that'll be foreshadowing for them surviving fire of Wyvern, because stone doesn't burn and that city is built of stone. And I know that they kind of were saying that like that's part of why they survived, or why part of it survived last time, why they could rebuild the city. But we know that that Venin are controlling blue and green flame Wyvern. And so I don't know, it kind of stuck out to me again as maybe the fact like that city in particular being important, because we have like the hatching grounds nearby, we've got the stone city, we've got like the additional wards that could be put up there because we have the ward stone, so just all those pieces together, I was like, I think there's going to be some significance to Eratia as like the main place that they're fighting in the next one.
I could absolutely see that. One of the biggest things I caught from from the Wyvern, that there's 2 different species of them. Yeah,
blue and green fire.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's like,
they play that off so casual in this one. They do not even acknowledge it.
No, it was so early on, and then they don't say anything else about it. Do you think it's going to end up being like how our dragons are like different colored and they have different tails, and they're going to like evolve into having that?
Maybe. My initial thought was, you know how you talked about there's like different classes of Venin, like different levels? It made me wonder if maybe like different colors are coming from different strengths at different levels.
Oh my god.
That was my first thought, at least. I don't know. I have absolutely no basis in that.
I like that. I like it though.
That's what my first thought was.
I like it though. Yeah. Gosh, so many things to think. It's funny because like, although this was an info dump, I feel like
there was so much information.
But I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Like, so many questions.
I honestly, for as much information as was put out, I really didn't think it felt info dumpy at any point.
No, I guess I didn't really either. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fast paced, but yeah.
It was dense, but I didn't think that it was like, there's another book that we've both been reading recently that I won't get into like details, but there's like a 30-page monologue of just straight information being spewed out. Like when I think of info dump, I think of that. You know what I mean? It's like it's like one really long conversation where someone's explaining something is what I see as an info dump. And I don't think I ever felt that way here. I felt like it was dribbled out. It was just, there was always new information you were learning.
Yeah. And so for me, it was like a little bit hard to keep straight. I think because within the past couple of months is when I really started to like take more notes and like tab a little bit more and like take, I guess, more thought into what I was reading. And so like when we did Fourth Wing, we sat there and just like talked about how much we loved Xaden.
Did we?
Yeah.
I should go back and listen to it. I don't even remember what we said.
I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it was
early. That was one of our first books.
I think, yeah. It
might have been our second book.
I think it might have been our second one.
Yeah.
And so, like, we weren't, like, I tabbed a whole bunch, but, like, I didn't feel like my thoughts were as clear.
Yeah.
And so coming into this, I'm just like, like, I have so much more to think about.
Yep.
And now I'm thinking about how the series is going to continue on.
Yes.
And so I just feel like I have so many questions.
Yeah. Definitely have lots of questions.
Something that I think might take place in like the rest of the series. And let me find where I actually have it written down, because I have something written down about it. Something that has not come, there it is, that has not come into play yet in the series are the gods. And we have 4 that we know of right now. We have Amari, who's the queen of the gods, and her place of worship is in the temple of Amari in Eurasia. And then we have Dune, who is the goddess of war. Malik, which they talk about Malik literally all the time. He's the god of death, and he's the reason that they burn the items of the dead. And then we have Xenol, which is the god of luck. And we don't actually know that much about them.
It's true.
But they use them in conversation all the time.
They do. And I kind of remember in Fourth Wing, not in here, so I'm not remembering exactly what it was, but there being a very short comment between maybe Taryn and Violet about the gods, and there being some comment about how the dragons felt about it. And now I'm curious to go back. Maybe maybe I'll look before we do part 2 and see, because I do remember there being like a comment with Taryn about either the dragons not, I don't know, caring about the gods or whatever. There was something about the gods with them though. So yeah.
Right. And so it's just interesting that, like, one of the ones that I like recognize all the time is when you go meet Malik, and it's like, that's interesting, and it's brought up so much that I'm like, clearly it's just like this like cultural thing that people have, but I wonder if it's actually important or if it will come up.
Yeah, or if it's just setting like the lore of that there are gods. But yeah, that is true, especially with how important burning the goods for Malik are. It just make me wonder
what happens if you don't burn them.
Well, and just, thinking of the dead, I realized very important thing that we haven't talked about yet. Another potential second signet for Violet.
Oh, what?
Communicating with the dead. And I think there's a lot of people who have that up there on their list of top potential options because of Liam being there very end of part 1. He's in the torture chamber
when she's
with her, and basically just supporting her and backing her up and whatever. And she's like, he feels so real. This is so crazy, whatever. And so it's hard to know if she's just hallucinating or if that's the very obvious thing that Rebecca Yarros is talking about. I don't know. But I mean, I can't finish this episode without having talked about that.
Exactly. And the only thing that I'm thinking about with that is, like, does she do it any other times?
There's one other moment when she says she thinks she sees Liam, but then it's at Liam's eyes, but then it's actually Sloane. So I kind of write that off. We'll read it again in part 2.
Yeah.
But like it could be written off as like, Sloane has the same eyes, and so maybe they look the same.
Yeah.
But the other reason why I could see it is because, again, second signet's born out of, or signets in general, born out of need. And she has a great need to know information that people long dead know.
Like her scribe dad?
Like her scribe dad, or even like the first 6, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people who have died who know things that she might need to be able to save everyone.
I've seen so many people try to debunk it, but now that you say that,
I mean, I'm not sold that that's the one,
right?
But I could see that rationale for why it could be the one, because I can see the importance of it, and I can see the application in the writing.
Yes, especially because Rebecca Yarros says she's already done it.
You're right.
I'm like, I don't understand. I didn't see that clearly.
You know what's funny? The first time that I read through the book, I caught so many things that I was like, oh, maybe that's a second signet. Maybe that's a second signet. And when I read it the second time, I thought they were all less obvious.
Yes.
I like was
me too.
really prying to pull them
too.
out. I thought, because I think I debunked myself in
Yes.
reading it. I like didn't think any of them were as true.
Yeah, pretty much same. I was like, or other things like with Xaden, I felt like he was so clear. Or Varish, I thought he was so much more clear this time.
Yeah, but I thought that her second signet was less clear on this read. I really thought that it would stick out to me reading it another time, and it just did not.
Same here. Did not.
Yeah. So that was, I think, the most obvious, but then I didn't know if it was like too obvious.
Yeah. I really don't know either. I'm like, again, I don't think it's that obvious. I don't know.
And we'll talk about it more in the second one, but it
too.
comes up a tiny bit in this one. Is like another potential second signet in my mind is maybe that she's like a dream walker of some sort.
Oh, interesting.
And we'll talk about it more in part 2 because I think it comes up more there. But there's a couple times where she has dreams, and I'm not sure if they're Xaden's and not hers.
Oh, that's a good thought. I do kind of remember that happening at the end of the book.
Yeah.
But I'll have to.
So just something to keep in mind as we're going into part 2.
Interesting. So where do we end off part 1?
She has been pulled from the torture chamber. Xaden has come and saved her. They've killed everybody basically. Him and Violet kill Varish together.
Yep.
Dean defects. Or Dane, not Dean.
God fucking damn it, Dane.
Yeah. Dane defects. He comes to their side after seeing Violet's memories, reading them in that chamber. I don't remember if the whole scene of Dane pulling everybody together, if that happens within first part, if that's like the very beginning of the second part. But basically that's where we leave off. She's talked to her mom on the way up, and her mom is like, yeah, I'm going to let you go.
Yeah,
do your
go
thing.
ahead.
Be safe. Yeah, that's pretty much where we leave off. Yeah. So I think
they're going to leave.
They're going to leave and go to Eurasia is kind of my understanding. Right?
Yeah.
Is where we leave off part 1.
Pretty much. That's pretty much where we leave off.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's a lot. I can't believe that was only the first half. And this is why I say Iron Flame could have been 2 books.
Because that should have been an entire book.
Half of 1 book.
Right. Well, especially because in the beginning, like, granted, I didn't read Fourth Wing that long ago. And I was so confused on who's who and where are we.
I did reread a Fourth Wing like 2 days before.
You did. But then, okay, so Fourth Wing was like 500 pages, but it was the easiest 500 pages I've ever read.
This is a lot more words.
This is a lot more words, a lot more information, a lot more things happening. Even though you're in the same world, it was still just like, it was a lot. I loved the book, 5 stars, but it was a lot. It was a lot. So that's our part 1. Stay tuned. We're probably also going to have 2 parts for part 2 because it's also a second book.
Yeah. So part 2 coming up soon. Listen in next week to see what we have to say now that we're in Eurasia.
Exactly.
And there's a lot more going on. Finally talk about Kat.
Oh,
that's
my
gonna be good.
gosh.
I'm excited about that.
She came up one point here. I was like, it's not
you gotta
worth
wait.
it.
Yep.
It's not worth it.
Good stuff coming. So join us next time.
Love it. See you guys next time, guys. Bye.